everybody, how are you? It is Wednesday. It's Withins'day. I am outside in the park. Excuse all the winter garb, but it is cold. Apparently winter is not quite done with us here in Charlotte. So we've got this last little burst of cold weather ahead of the equinox energies next week. And I'm a little tired today, full disclosure. I think I was up for 3 hours last night processing some big stuff. And so if I seem a little tired, I am, but I'm here. I committed to doing these videos, so I'm here. So let's talk a little bit about the energies and what's going on. And what I really want to talk about today is some of the things that I'm seeing as I'm preparing to teach this religion and spirituality class at the end of the month. And it's really big stuff, and I think it's up in the collective because I've had so many clients coming in with it, so I wanted to talk about it. As I've been mentioning, we are headed into the equinox, and my guides have been saying how strong these energies are going to be. So I'm just reiterating that to you all, that if you're going through something right now, if you're purging, I've got a little bit of a physical purge going on, I think, with my ear, some old past life stuff clearing out. So I got my beanie on. And maybe you've got some fear stuff coming up, because that tends to be the lowest frequencies are what we tend to clear out ahead of these big influxes of light. So shame, guilt, fear, unworthiness, those kinds of things. Don't fret, right? We're going through a process here to make a bit more space to draw in even more light into our bodies. And a lot of you have been reaching out to me and saying, hey, I'm having these crazy dreams. There's all kinds of really weird stuff going on. Yep, that's par for the course when we're leading into these big portals. So don't be disheartened. You're not going backwards. That's what I normally hear. I feel like I'm regressing. You're not. That's not how this works. You're still moving forward, but there are probably some things that you haven't completed, or some lessons or some energies that still need to be cleared that were buried underneath a few things, perhaps. So you're not going backwards. Don't worry. Really don't go backwards on the ascension process. That's one of the things that people complain to me about sometimes. They're like, I feel like I've rung this bell and I can't unring it. I can't not see things. And that's what happens on the ascension process. Like, you're still moving forward, even if it feels like at a snail's pace. So that brings me to what I wanted to talk with you all about today, which is, I've been doing this New Earth Now school. We're moving into our 4th module now, which is hardly, I can't even believe that, because we started last September. And it just feels like this has been such a big journey for me. And I know it's been a big journey for the people that are in the school with me and taking the classes. But we're working on religion and spirituality. And when the guides brought that in a couple of months ago, because they always bring the topics in a couple of months ahead of time for me, so I know where we're going and I can do my own work to clear my channel so that I can be basically a vessel of truth without judgment and just bring information through. But when they told me we were moving to religion and spirituality next, I was like, really? That feels even harder than the money module that you asked me to teach. And sure enough, all of the things that have been coming to me in session, I will say probably for the last 3 to 4 weeks, maybe 5 weeks, consistently in every session, I'm clearing religious energy for people. And it's funny to me how many people say, I'm not religious in this lifetime, so I don't resonate with that. But y'all, if you're coming to work with me, you have been on this planet, on this rodeo we call being in a human body for many lifetimes. So it doesn't matter if you're religious in this lifetime or not. You have been through some stuff with religion. If you look at our history on this planet, religion, as I tune into it, what was originally religion was brought onto this planet for was to help guide young souls on right and wrong. There was this kind of inherent rule system that was needed to help guide young souls on right and wrong, but then we've taken it and we've turned it into something that is much bigger than that. We've built whole systems and structures around it. We've built money systems and time systems and so many laws and things based on these religious teachings that really weren't intended to build a whole society around. And I don't have anything against religion. I think it has its purpose here on this planet. I don't have any judgment towards anybody in any religious order. And I see that it, even in the worst case scenarios where religious trauma is happening, that it's still serving the soul to move through that experience, even though the soul that's moving through it probably doesn't feel that way. But when I tune into this energy that we're working with in this class, there's all this shame and all this judgment and all this unworthiness and all this guilt and all this perfection energy that is wrapped up in this energy of religion. And it's interesting because I've been attracting in some clients recently who have been through something very tumultuous, very difficult. They're carrying a lot of shame about it, right? You can imagine different things that people do on this planet that might create shame for them, warranted or not warranted. And they come to me and they're saying that they're turning to religion because they just want to be told what to do. They want to be told what's right and what's wrong. And the thing is, it's not that simple, right? Religion is not here in its current incarnation, I think, in a pure enough sense to help us to suss out what is right and wrong for everybody. Like, it's too individual. And I also just want to say that there is no right and wrong, right? There is this understanding when we drop into unity consciousness that there is no right and there is no wrong, that everything serves. And yes, there are victims and yes, there are villains, but we're all both. And so when we get into religion, oftentimes we get into dualistic terms and we get into good and evil, wrong and right. We get into talking about sinning. And I definitely don't condone bad behavior or people doing things that are harming others. But I think sometimes religion is used to self-shame and to self-police in a way that is much more than I think certainly Yeshua intended it to be. Yeshua or Jesus intended it to be. When I channeled, I can think of many times where I have connected with him in the last probably 12 or 13 years. I can think back maybe 5 or 6 years ago around Easter when I had a really big experience with Jesus and actually experienced the energy of crucifixion in my body and experienced some of that energy. It's always this loving, non-judgmental presence when I bring Jesus forward, when I bring Yeshua forward and I call on him. And yet when I'm working with these clients and they're talking to me about how they're using religion, it doesn't look like that. It looks like them shaming themselves and them saying, am I right with God? Am I right with the Creator so that I can hear my guide, so that I can continue to be on this path? And y'all, it's not that simple, right? There is no God, in my opinion, above us that is here smiting us for not being perfect. I just don't believe in that. And if that is your truth, I honor it. But I am watching what it does to people as I'm working with them. I'm working with people who have been in very strict religious orders. I'm working with people who are in non-denominational religious orders. And I still see how confining it is in their energy field, because they're taking their truth and stepping back from their truth, and they're putting their truth and their power in something else. And even when I channel, the Elohim is the collective that's been working with me to do this clearing in my own being ahead of this class. And the Elohim are the creator angels. They're the archangels, right? So the Elohim, as I understand it, is the group of archangels that helped to take the light and the energy and the sound of God or creator or source. And they're like the prism, because they represent all of the rays of color. They're like the prism that took that energy, that initial energy of source, and channeled it through their beings to create reality as we know it, right? This is how it's been explained to me. And when I channel them, they're always like, the more work you do to love yourself, the more work you do to accept yourself. And as you accept yourself, you begin to heal the dark, I'll put that in air quotes, parts of you, the parts of you that in religion would be considered sinful, right? The shameful parts. When you start to love all of the parts of you, and bring light to those parts, you become more whole, you become more healed, and then you can work with us even more. You can bring more light onto this planet. You can do more good deeds, which is, you know, what I'm here to do. I'm here to serve in whatever way I can, but not at the expense of me, not through shaming myself. And so as I do deeper and deeper self-love work and self-acceptance work, my connection to the heavens, my connection to my guides expands. And nowhere in that is there me shaming myself to be better. That just doesn't work. I tried to do that for so many years under the auspices of spirituality, which is the other part of this class, that I didn't even attach it to religion, but they're so similar. Like shaming myself into being perfect. And when you're holding all that perfection energy, there's so much rigidity in your being, specifically in your throat and your neck, when you're holding that perfection energy, that you can't channel the love of God. You can't channel that light through your being. You can't channel creator and source energy. It gets all hung up and it has nowhere to go in the body. And so then when it has nowhere to go in the body, it can't be expressed through you out into the world. And so as I've been doing deeper work on self-love and trying to create change from a place of love rather than shame, it has shifted my ability to do work on this planet. And that's, I think, the harmful side of religion and spirituality, because I think in spiritual, I put that under the New Age bucket. Anything that you don't consider religion, that you would consider outside of religion, I'll put in the spirituality bucket. Some spiritual teachings tell you to just lean into the love and the light part, and you don't work with those parts of you that you don't do shadow work. You just try to keep your vibration high. That's also bullshit, right? Because sometimes you got to drop into the density. This thing that's going on with my ear, there's so much density in this, but if I don't drop into it and sit with it and be with it and understand that this is from another lifetime, and that there's some injuries that have happened to me in other lifetimes that I'm still carrying, like all these different components, I have to drop into it to understand that and to figure it out. And I see religion and spirituality on these dualistic planes here. And I think what we want to find is some place in the middle, right? We want to find where the good parts, no, I don't want to use that word because it's too dualistic, where the parts of both of those aspects align with us. Like, where is our truth in that? And there could be, I think there's some lovely teachings from religion, from all of the religions on this planet, from Buddhism, from Christianity, from Catholicism. There's so much ritual and there's so many things that they took from mysticism that existed before religion, right? That they've taken and they've conformed them to something that works for their particular teaching. It's all the same, right? It's all wrapped into one. And so we have to find our truth within all of these buckets. But if you are not on a path of loving yourself and holding space for those vulnerable parts of you and not shaming them, it is so hard to discern truth. It's so much easier to just give your power away and let somebody else tell you what to think. And so when clients come to me and they say, am I doing a good job? Am I doing this right? Am I making the right decision? I often don't answer them unless I get a really clear signal that I'm supposed to give them some level of that truth. I normally come back to them with a question and say, are you happy? Does it feel good in your body? Because I don't want to be giving them their truth either. I am just here to live my experience and be the most beautiful and expansive and open-hearted version of myself that I can be in any moment, and be a channel of unconditional love, so that when they come to me and they tell me all this really hard shit about what's going on in their life and what's happening to them, that I'm able to hold that space for them and love them in a non-judgmental container and just say, wow, I'm here for you. I'm holding that space for you, and let's dive into what you're learning from this, and let's dive into these soul contracts, and let's do some clearing so that you can be in a place of acceptance with what's happening in your life so that it can change, right? And so I am not here to give anybody answers on anything in my perspective. I am here to be the highest expression of myself, to love myself, to channel this love through my being in the form of teachings that come through that might bring awarenesses to people and might get them to think and might get them to expand their perspective. That's really what I'm here to do. I'm here to activate and expand their perspective. And so when I look at these lifetimes where I have been a religious teacher or fought in religious wars, I can see why I have been stepping into my full power and to speak my full truth in this lifetime, because quite frankly, and I'm sure many of you who are listening to this have lived lifetimes where we did a lot of probably not so great things in the name of religion. And at the time, we did the best that we could with the information that we had. But if we had the ability to look into the future and see that our world was going to be very different, and it wasn't going to be based on this fight of life or death on which religion you're choosing to align with, or which country you're choosing to align with, all these different wars that we've been in, I think we would realize, ooh, this isn't maybe the best decision, but we didn't have that information at the time. And so even the versions of you who have done some things in other lifetimes, they have to be forgiven. They have to be brought into the light and loved on. And then as that light is returned to you and you no longer have that karmic cycle that you're playing out here in this lifetime where you're so afraid to step into your truth and your power because of how you've used it in the past, then you can serve in your highest capacity of what you came here to do. Some of you came here just to be a mom, but you still have to heal these things to be a mom, right? It gets passed down through the generations. It's generational loops, generational trauma. And so when we talk about being an active creator, which is one of our themes this month, this is the healing, right? We have to heal the shame. We have to heal the guilt. We have to heal the doubt in order to be able to step into our truth and be an active creator and ask for what we want and believe that we can have it and believe that we're worthy of it. And so this is what we're going to be working with in this class that I have coming up. It is so big. I feel like leading up to this class, I keep thinking, oh, it's next week. Nope, I've still got 2 more weeks. And it's felt like it's taken a long time to get to the end of March to be able to teach this, because this stuff is all in my body and I can barely contain it. But I'm doing my personal work to be as clear of a channel as I can so I can bring these teachings through on creation, and I can bring these teachings through on different things around religion and do some healing work with people that join this class. And this is the necessary timetable, right? It takes a little while for me to clear all the things that I need to ahead of being able to bring this information through, because that's the way I work. I live it before I teach it, before I bring the wisdom through. And so I encourage you, even if you're not somebody who considers yourself religious in this lifetime, but you're dealing with disempowerment energy, you're dealing with having trouble being in your truth, you're dealing with maybe some narcissistic, empathic dynamics, maybe you're dealing with some difficulty in your relationships, and there is shame and guilt and unworthiness underneath that, I guarantee you that there is a religious component to that, and we will touch on that in this class. And if you're somebody who's a spiritual seeker and you are trying to understand how to find your true path within spirituality and take from all of these different teachings and all these different modalities and all these different fun things that we have on this planet and find your true north, then I think this class will be helpful for you too, because we're going to be doing clearing work around spirituality as well and bringing in teachings on that. So that's what I wanted to share with you all today. I guess my most important message in all of this is please just love yourselves. Love yourselves as unconditionally as you can, and try not to create a change through shame. It doesn't work long term. It might work short term, but it builds up anger and resentment and bitterness and all kinds of negativity in our being when we try to create change through shame, and it's not lasting. It doesn't last, and it often ekes out in other ways where we have bad behavior that happens. I don't want to use the word bad, but we have behavior that we wouldn't necessarily align with normally that happens, and it ekes out in other ways, right, when we try to create change through shame. So can you love yourself into changing? And can you also understand that if you don't ever change and you don't ever make a shift, that you're still worthy, that you're still loved, that you are still in the creators, that you're still worthy of being here. And the last thing that I'll say before I close is that I've been reading The Interior Castle by Teresa Avila. It was something that Saint Teresa of Avila channeled basically when she was alive. And it's basically about the 7 chakras. It's about going inward and doing our inner work and healing our 7 energy centers. She calls them 7 rooms in an interior castle. It's not too hard to figure out when you study chakras what that really means. And it's all about going inward and loving ourselves and trying to heal these wounds. And she talks in a lot of metaphor in the book. And so humankind has been on this path since the beginning of time, right? We're figuring it out. We're raising our frequency. We're increasing our light capacity. We're raising our consciousness. We're understanding how to be in connection and co-creation with one another in a more expanded way. It is a process. And so don't be disheartened, right? We are figuring it out together. And if it's hard for you to love yourselves, that's a process too. All right, so good to see you, beautiful beings. Thank you for watching, and I'll put the link to the New Earth Now School underneath this. If you happen to be in the Virginia area, we are doing an awesome Earth Day ceremony, Day of Wellness and Ceremony on April 22nd in Glen Allen, Virginia at an alpaca farm, which we're gonna have some beautiful stuff going on there. So I'll put some information about that below this video too, if you might want to join us for that. All right, have a beautiful day. Thank you everyone for watching. Stay warm, and I'll see you next week. Bye.